When I found that 6-year-old boy digging through the dumpster behind my church at midnight, his tiny hands bloody from broken glass, I thought I was just helping another homeless child. But when he looked up at me with those haunting green eyes and called me Dad, my blood ran cold. I'm Pastor Michael Harrison, and what I discovered in the letter hidden in that boy's torn jacket didn't just reveal why he knew my face. It exposed a secret that would destroy my marriage, divide my congregation, and force me to confront a sin I thought God had already forgiven. The boy searching for food in our trash wasn't a stranger. He was the son I never knew existed, and his mother had sent him to find me with proof that would bring down everything I'd built. Before I reveal how a starving child in a dumpster held the key to a conspiracy that went all the way to the church's highest leaders, hit that subscribe button right now. This story will challenge everything you believe about forgiveness, family, and faith. Subscribe to our channel now because what happens next will leave you speechless. Don't miss this incredible journey. Click subscribe. My name is Pastor Michael Harrison, and for 15 years, I've led the Cornerstone Baptist Church in Memphis, Tennessee. 3,000 members, a nationally syndicated television ministry, a reputation for helping the homeless and forgotten. I had everything a man of God could want: a beautiful wife, 2 daughters, the respect of my community, and the certainty that I was walking in God's path. But on a cold November night in 2023, all of that changed when I found a little boy eating from our dumpster, and he called me by a name that shattered my carefully constructed world. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday. I'd stayed late at the church to work on Sunday's sermon about God's forgiveness and redemption. My wife Sarah had taken our daughters, Rebecca and Ruth, to her mother's house in Nashville for the weekend, so I had no reason to rush home to an empty house. The church was quiet, peaceful, the kind of silence that usually brought me closer to God. But that night something felt different. There was an electricity in the air, a sense of anticipation that I couldn't shake. I was locking up the main sanctuary when I heard it, a metallic crash from behind the building where we kept our dumpsters. My first thought was raccoons. We'd been having problems with them getting into the trash. But then I heard something that made my blood freeze, a child crying. I ran to the back parking lot, my dress shoes slipping on the wet asphalt. The security lights were broken, had been for weeks despite my requests to have them fixed, so I used my phone's flashlight to navigate through the darkness. What I saw when I rounded the corner stopped me dead in my tracks. A small boy, couldn't have been more than 6 years old, was inside our industrial dumpster. He was so thin I could see his ribs through his torn t-shirt, and his hands were bleeding from digging through broken glass and sharp metal cans. He was eating something. Looked like the half-eaten sandwiches from our Wednesday night fellowship dinner. His clothes were filthy, sizes too big, held up with a piece of rope as a belt. But it was his eyes that haunted me most. Bright green, unnaturally bright, like emeralds catching light in a cave. "Hey there, buddy," I said softly, not wanting to scare him. "It's okay. I'm not gonna hurt you." The boy looked up at me and his face transformed. The fear melted away, replaced by something I couldn't identify. Recognition? Hope? Love? "Dad?" he whispered. "Daddy, you came back." The word hit me like a physical blow. Dad. This starving, abandoned child was calling me Dad. "I'm sorry, son, but I'm not," I started. But he scrambled out of the dumpster and ran to me, wrapping his skeletal arms around my legs. "Mama said you would be here," he sobbed into my pants. "She said to find the church with the big cross and the man with the kind eyes. She said you were my dad and you would take care of me." I stood frozen, this strange child clinging to me like I was his last hope in the world. My mind raced through possibilities. Is this some kind of scam? A confused child who'd lost his actual father? But even as I tried to rationalize it, something deep in my gut was screaming that this was real, that this child was telling the truth. "What's your name?" I asked, gently prying him off my legs and kneeling down to his level. "Elisha," he said. "Elijah Michael Thompson. Mama said she named me after you, Michael, my middle name. My grandfather's name. The name only a handful of people knew I preferred to my first name, David." "Where's your mama, Elijah?" His face crumpled. "She's gone to heaven. Yesterday or maybe the day before. I don't know. She was sick for a long time and then she stopped breathing. She told me to take the letter and find you." "What letter?" He reached into his jacket, an adult's jacket that swallowed his tiny frame, and pulled out a manila envelope, worn and dirty from being carried by a child's hands. My name was written on it in handwriting that sent a lightning bolt of recognition through my brain. Angela Thompson. I hadn't thought about Angela Thompson in 7 years. She'd been a member of my first church in Atlanta before I was married, before I became the successful pastor I was now. She'd come to me for counseling after escaping an abusive relationship. She was beautiful, broken, searching for God's love. And in my arrogance and weakness, I'd given her the wrong kind of love. It had only happened once. One night after a particularly emotional counseling session. She'd cried in my arms and I'd crossed the line that every pastor knows is sacred. The next day, consumed with guilt, I'd confessed to my senior pastor, resigned from my position and moved to Memphis to start over. I'd never seen Angela again. I'd heard she'd moved back to Alabama to be with family. I'd convinced myself it was a closed chapter, a sin forgiven and forgotten. But sins, I was learning, don't stay buried. They have children, and sometimes those children show up at your church, starving and calling you dad. "Let's get you inside," I said to Elijah, my voice shaking. "Let's get you warm and fed." I carried him into the church. He weighed almost nothing, like carrying a bag of feathers, and took him to the kitchen. While he devoured leftover fried chicken and mashed potatoes from our Wednesday service, I opened the letter with trembling hands. "Michael, if you're reading this, it means I'm dead and Elijah has found you. I'm sorry for the shock this must be. I'm sorry for everything. But I'm mostly sorry that I never told you about your son. Yes, Michael, Elijah is yours. I have the DNA test to prove it. Though one look at his eyes, your mother's eyes, you once told me, should be proof enough. I never told you because I knew it would destroy your calling, your future ministry. You were so broken after that night, so desperate to make things right with God. How could I add to your burden? So I left. I raised him alone. I told him his father was a good man who had to go away but loved him very much. It wasn't entirely a lie. But now I'm dying. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. I have no family left. My parents disowned me when I got pregnant without a husband. I have nowhere else to turn. Elijah needs his father. I know you're married now. I know you have a family, a successful ministry. I'm sorry to disrupt your life, but he's your son, and he needs you. There's something else you need to know. The night we were together wasn't an accident. I'm not saying you're blameless. You made your choice, but I need you to know that I was sent to you, paid to seduce you, to destroy you. There are people in the church, powerful people, who wanted you gone. You were too progressive, too focused on actually helping people instead of building wealth and power. They knew your weakness, your compassion that could be manipulated into something else. They sent me to counsel with you, knowing my story would touch your heart, knowing I was exactly the type of broken soul you couldn't resist saving. I was supposed to seduce you, expose you, destroy your ministry. I did the first part, but I couldn't do the rest because I fell in love with you. And when I discovered I was pregnant, I ran instead of completing my mission. They paid me $50,000 to destroy you. I kept the money and disappeared. I used it to raise your son. But they're still watching you, Michael, still waiting for you to fall. Be careful who you trust. The conspiracy goes deeper than you know. I've enclosed the only proof I have, a recorded conversation from 7 years ago that I was never supposed to keep. Play it only if you need to. It implicates people you trust, people who smile in your face every Sunday. I'm sorry for my part in this. I'm sorry for everything, but Elijah's innocent. He's brilliant, kind, loves God with a pure heart. He knows Bible verses I never taught him, says God talks to him in dreams. He's special, Michael. He's going to do great things if given the chance. Please give him that chance. Please forgive me. And please, love our son. Angela, I read the letter 3 times before it fully sank in. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the paper. I looked at Elijah, who had finished eating and was now watching me with those impossibly green eyes. My mother's eyes, just as Angela had said. "Are you my dad?" he asked simply. I thought about lying. I thought about calling child services, letting the system handle this. I thought about protecting my reputation, my marriage, my ministry. But then I looked at this boy, my son, and saw myself at that age. Scared, hungry, desperate for love and acceptance. "Yes," I said, the word coming out as a whisper. "Yes, Elijah. I'm your dad." He smiled then, the first real smile I'd seen from him, and it was like watching the sun come out after a storm. "Mama said you would say yes. She said you were a good man who made one mistake but would do the right thing. Your mama was a smart woman. She's with Jesus now," he said matter-of-factly. "She told me not to be sad because she's not sick anymore. But I'm still sad. That's okay. It's okay to be sad when we lose someone we love. Will you be sad if you lose me?" The question broke my heart. "I'm not going to lose you, Elijah. Promise?" "I promise." But even as I said it, I knew keeping that promise would cost me everything. I took Elijah to my house, a large parsonage provided by the church, empty now with my family gone for the weekend. I ran him a bath, horrified by the bruises and scars on his little body, evidence of a hard life I couldn't imagine. His clothes went straight into the trash. They were beyond saving. I found some old clothes from when my daughters were younger, not perfect, but better than what he had. As I tucked him into the guest bedroom, he grabbed my hand. "Mama said you would read me the Bible. She said you tell the best Bible stories." So I sat on the edge of the bed and told him the story of David and Goliath, about how God uses the small and weak to defeat the mighty. His eyes grew heavy, but just before he fell asleep, he said something that chilled me to the bone. "The mean man at Mama's funeral said you wouldn't want me. He said you had a perfect family and wouldn't want a bastard son." "What's a bastard, Dad?" "Who was this man, Elijah?" "I don't know his name, but he had a big ring with a cross on it, and he smelled like the cigarettes Mama said were bad for you." Deacon James Crawford. Chairman of our board, my biggest supporter, the man who'd recommended me for this position 15 years ago. He wore a ring exactly like that, and despite claiming to have quit, everyone knew he still smoked in secret. After Elijah fell asleep, I went to my office and found the small USB drive Angela had included with her letter. My hands shook as I plugged it into my laptop. The audio file was dated 7 years ago, 2 weeks before my encounter with Angela. The recording was scratchy but clear enough. 3 voices. Deacon Crawford was one. The second was Bishop Thomas Whitfield, who oversaw our entire district. The third voice I didn't recognize. "The boy's getting too popular," Crawford said. "His sermons about economic justice, about the church's responsibility to the poor. He's going to upset the balance we've worked so hard to create." "He's also been asking questions about the building fund," Bishop Whitfield added. "Getting too close to discovering the discrepancies." "Then we need him gone," the third voice said. "Not dead, just disgraced. Someone young and pretty. Someone damaged he'll want to save." "I have the perfect girl," Crawford said. "Angela Thompson. Just out of an abusive relationship, vulnerable, beautiful, exactly his type, and she'll do it. For 50,000, she'll do anything. She needs the money for her sick mother. Then it's settled. We'll send her to him for counseling. Nature will take its course. When it does, we expose him, he resigns in disgrace, and we put someone more cooperative in his place." The recording ended. I sat in the darkness of my office, feeling like my world was collapsing. Everything I'd built, everything I'd achieved, was built on a foundation of lies and manipulation. They'd played me like a puppet, and even now, 7 years later, I was still dancing to their tune. But now I had Elijah to think about. My son, the innocent victim in all of this. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my office praying, thinking, planning. By morning, I'd made my decision. I would claim Elijah as my son. I would tell Sarah everything when she returned. I would face the consequences of my actions. And I would expose the conspiracy that had been festering in our church for years. I was making breakfast when Elijah woke up. He stood in the doorway of the kitchen, looking lost and scared. "I thought it was a dream," he said. "I thought I dreamed finding you. It wasn't a dream, buddy. I'm here. You're safe." He ran to me then, hugging me tight. "I love you, Daddy. I've loved you my whole life, even when I didn't know you. I love you too, son." And I meant it. This child I'd known for less than 12 hours had already claimed a piece of my heart I didn't know existed. That Saturday, while Sarah was still in Nashville, I took Elijah shopping for clothes, enrolled him in school, and began the legal process of claiming paternity. The DNA test would take a few days, but I didn't need it. The eyes were proof enough. But more than that, the way he laughed at my jokes. The way he tilted his head when thinking, the way he couldn't sit still during cartoons. It was all me, reflected in miniature. At the church, I acted normal, preparing for Sunday's service as if my world hadn't been turned upside down. But I also did something else. I installed hidden cameras in my office and the conference room. If Crawford and the others were going to move against me, I wanted proof. Saturday evening, my phone rang. "Sarah, Michael, we're coming home early. Rebecca has a fever." My heart sank. I'd hoped for one more day to figure out how to tell her. "Okay, drive safe. I love you. Love you too." I looked at Elijah, who was coloring at the kitchen table, humming a hymn Angela must have taught him. "Elijah, my wife and daughters are coming home soon. This might be difficult." He looked up at me with those wise, beyond his years eyes. "Mama said your wife might not want me. She said I should be very good and very quiet, and maybe she would let me stay. You don't have to be anyone but yourself. You're my son. This is your home now." But even I didn't believe my own words. Sarah arrived at 9 p.m. Rebecca's fever had broken, but she was still cranky and clingy. Ruth, my 8-year-old, bounced into the house full of stories about Grandma's house. They both stopped short when they saw Elijah. "Who's this?" Ruth asked. Before I could answer, Elijah stood up and held out his hand like a little gentleman. "I'm Elijah. I'm 6. Nice to meet you." Ruth shook his hand, charmed. Rebecca, even in her sick state, smiled. Sarah looked at me, confusion and something else, suspicion, in her eyes. "Michael, who is this child?" "Sarah, we need to talk. Girls, why don't you show Elijah your playroom?" The kids ran off, and Sarah and I went to our bedroom. I told her everything. About Angela, about that night 7 years ago, about finding Elijah, about the letter, about the conspiracy. I played her the recording. I showed her the DNA test I'd ordered. I laid bare every sin, every secret, every shame. She didn't cry, that would have been better. Instead, she went completely cold. "You had an affair once, 7 years ago. Before we were married, we were engaged, Michael. We'd been engaged for 3 months. I'd forgotten that detail. The weight of it crushed me. You have a son." "Yes. And you want to bring him into our home. He has nowhere else to go. Foster care. Adoption. There are options. He's my son, Sarah. He's your bastard," she said, the word like a slap. "The product of your sin. And you want me to raise him, to look at him every day and remember that you betrayed me? Betrayed God? I'm not asking you to." "Yes, you are. You're asking me to pretend this child is part of our family. To lie to our friends, our congregation. To live with your shame. What would you have me do? Abandon him? He's 6 years old, Sarah. He just lost his mother. He's been living on the streets, eating from dumpsters. That's not my fault. Or my responsibility. So much for Christian charity. It was the wrong thing to say. Sarah's face went from cold to furious. Don't you dare lecture me about Christianity. You're the one who broke your vows to God. You're the one who's been living a lie for 7 years. You're the one who brought this scandal to our door. And what about Crawford, the bishop? The conspiracy to destroy our ministry? I don't care about any of that. Let them have the church. We'll move. Start over. Somewhere no one knows about your ... mistake. Elijah's not a mistake. He's evidence of your mistake. We argued for 3 more hours, Sarah cried, raged, threatened divorce. But in the end, her fear of scandal of being a divorced pastor's wife won out. She agreed to let Elijah stay temporarily while we figured things out. But she made it clear she would never accept him as her son. Sunday came too quickly. I stood at the pulpit looking out at 3,000 faces, knowing that among them were the men who'd orchestrated my downfall 7 years ago. Crawford sat in his usual front row seat, smiling his practiced smile. Bishop Whitfield was there for his monthly visit, nodding approvingly at my sermon about forgiveness. I'd prepared a sermon about redemption, but standing there, looking at Elijah, sitting with Sarah and the girls, seeing the way Sarah kept him at arm's length while embracing our daughters, I knew I couldn't preach lies anymore. I want to tell you all a story, I began, deviating from my prepared text. A story about sin, forgiveness, and the consequences of our actions. I told them everything. About Angela, about Elijah, about my failure 7 years ago. The congregation sat in stunned silence. Some people started recording on their phones. Crawford's face went from red to purple. Bishop Whitfield stood up to leave, but seemed frozen by the weight of the moment. But there's more, I continued. My sin was real, but it was also orchestrated. Manipulated by people in this very room who wanted me gone because I was asking too many questions about where your tithe money really goes. I played the recording over the church's sound system. Every word echoed through the sanctuary. The conspiracy laid bare for all to hear. Chaos erupted. People shouting, arguing, some defending Crawford and the bishop, others demanding answers. Through it all, Elijah sat quietly, his small hand reaching for mine when I returned to my seat. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Crawford tried to deny everything, but more evidence surfaced. Other staff members came forward with stories of financial irregularities, of money diverted from missions to personal accounts. The state attorney general's office opened an investigation. Bishop Whitfield was removed from his position pending review, but I didn't escape unscathed. Half the congregation left, unable to reconcile my admission with their image of me. The other half stayed but looked at me differently, some with pity, others with a kind of respectful disappointment. The church board, what was left of it after Crawford's allies resigned, voted to keep me on, but with reduced responsibilities and mandatory counseling. Sarah struggled. She tried, I'll give her that. She made sure Elijah was fed, clothed, enrolled in school, but she couldn't love him. She could barely look at him. Our daughters, innocent in all of this, adored their new brother, but they could sense their mother's coldness and didn't understand it. 3 months after Elijah's arrival, I found him crying in his room. What's wrong, buddy? Mrs. Sarah hates me. She doesn't hate you. She does. She told Mrs. Johnson from the church that I was a burden she didn't ask for. I heard her. I held my son while he cried, feeling my marriage crumbling with each tear. That night I confronted Sarah. He heard you, calling him a burden. Well, he is, she said, not even trying to deny it. I didn't ask for this, Michael. I didn't ask for a constant reminder of your infidelity living in my house, our house, and he's a child. My child, but not mine. And I'm tired of pretending otherwise. What are you saying? I'm saying choose him or us. You can be a father to your bastard or to your legitimate children. Not both. You're asking me to choose between my children? I'm asking you to choose between your sin and your family. Elijah is my family. Then you've made your choice. Sarah filed for divorce the next week. She took the girls and moved back to Nashville. The custody battle was ugly, with Sarah's lawyer painting me as an unfit father who'd brought scandal and an illegitimate child into the home. The judge, a member of a conservative church himself, was sympathetic to Sarah. I got every other weekend with Rebecca and Ruth, and Sarah got everything else. The house, the savings, the respect of the community. Elijah and I moved into a small apartment near the church. The congregation that remained rallied around us, especially the single mothers who understood what it was like to be judged for circumstances beyond their control. Elijah thrived despite everything. He was brilliant, just as Angela had said, reading at a 3rd grade level despite being only 6. He memorized Bible verses like other kids memorized cartoon themes. And he had an uncanny ability to sense when people were hurting, often walking up to crying church members and offering tiny hands and massive hugs. God tells me when people are sad, he explained once. He says it's our job to help them feel better. The investigation into the church's finances revealed a stunning level of corruption. Over $2 million had been embezzled over 15 years. Crawford was arrested, though his expensive lawyers kept him out of jail. Bishop Whitfield fled to Mexico. 3 other churches in the district were implicated in the scandal. It was a mess that made national news, with my confession and Elijah's appearance at the center of it all. But through it all, I had my son. And slowly I began to rebuild, not my reputation, that was gone forever, but my relationship with God and my understanding of what it meant to be a father. One evening, 6 months after everything exploded, Elijah and I were making dinner together when he asked, "Do you wish I never found you?" I knelt down to his level. "Never. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. But I ruined your life." "Nobody. My choices, my sins, ruined parts of my life. You saved the parts that mattered. You saved my soul." Mama said you would say that. She said you would lose everything but gain what was important. Your mama was a very smart woman. She's watching us, you know. Her and God, they're proud of you. How do you know? I just know. And looking into those impossibly green eyes, I believed him. A year later, things had stabilized. The church, now free from corruption, was smaller but healthier. We focused on actually helping people instead of building wealth. Our food bank fed hundreds of families. Our after-school program gave kids like Elijah a safe place to learn and grow. I was still a pastor, though, a humbled one, preaching about real forgiveness, real redemption, real consequences. Sarah had remarried to a banker from Nashville who'd never made a mistake in his life, or so she liked to tell everyone. Rebecca and Ruth visited regularly, and they loved their brother fiercely, even if their mother forbade them from talking about him in her presence. Elijah started first grade and amazed his teachers. He was reading at a 5th grade level, doing math that should have been impossible for his age. But more than his academic gifts, it was his spirit that impressed everyone. He befriended the loneliest kids, stood up to bullies despite being small for his age, and once organized his entire class to donate their lunch money to a classmate whose house had burned down. "Where did you learn to be so kind?" his teacher asked him. "From my dad," he said proudly. "He says God's love means taking care of each other." The teacher called me that night, crying. "I've taught for 20 years, she said. "I've never met a child like Elijah. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it," but I knew it wasn't me. It was Angela's influence. Those 6 years she'd raised him alone, pouring all her love and faith into him despite their circumstances. And maybe it was God, too, working through this child who should never have existed, but who was becoming a light in the darkness. One Sunday, 2 years after Elijah found me, I was preaching about Joseph and his coat of many colors, about how God can use even betrayal and pain for good. Elijah was sitting in the front row, as always, his children's Bible open on his lap. Suddenly, the church doors opened and a woman walked in. She was elderly, well-dressed, with silver hair and familiar green eyes. Elijah gasped, "That's her. That's the lady from my dream." The woman walked down the aisle with purpose, ignoring the stares and whispers. She stopped at Elijah's pew. "You must be Elijah," she said, her voice cultured and warm. "Yes, ma'am. Who are you?" "I'm your great-grandmother, your mama's mama." The church went silent. I stood at the pulpit, frozen. "But Mama said her parents were dead," Elijah said, confused. "No, baby, we weren't dead. We were just too proud and too stupid to forgive her for getting pregnant without a husband. We disowned her, cut her off. It's the biggest regret of my life." She turned to me then, and I saw Angela in her face. "You're Michael." "Yes, ma'am. I hired a private investigator to find my grandson after I saw the news stories. I know everything. What my daughter did, what you did, what those men did to both of you." She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "This is Angela's inheritance. We weren't poor, Pastor Harrison. We were wealthy. Old Atlanta money. Angela would have inherited $5 million if we hadn't been such self-righteous fools. Now it goes to Elijah. But there's a condition." "What condition?" "That you raise him to be better than all of us. Better than you, who fell to temptation. Better than Angela, who accepted money to destroy someone. Better than me and his grandfather, who chose pride over our own daughter. Promise me you'll raise him to be better, I promise." She nodded, then knelt down to Elijah's level, her expensive dress pooling on the church floor. "I'm sorry I wasn't there for you and your mama. Can you forgive a foolish old woman?" Elijah didn't hesitate. He threw his arms around her neck. "Mama forgave you. She told me so in my dream. She says you should forgive yourself too." The old woman sobbed then, holding her great-grandson like he was the most precious thing in the world, which I suppose he was. Margaret Thompson, Angela's mother, became part of our lives after that. She moved to Memphis, bought a house near our apartment, and spent every possible moment with Elijah. She told him stories about Angela's childhood, showed him pictures, filled in the gaps of his history. She also insisted on paying for his education, enrolling him in the best private school in Memphis. "But I want him to stay grounded," I said. "Rich doesn't mean spoiled," Margaret replied. "It means having resources to help others." That's what I should have taught Angela. That's what you'll teach Elijah. She was right. Elijah used his advantages to lift others. He tutored kids who struggled in school, used his allowance to buy supplies for classmates who couldn't afford them, and convinced his wealthy school to partner with our church's food bank. The truth about the financial corruption in the church led to massive reforms in our entire denomination. New oversight procedures were put in place. Crawford went to prison after all. Turns out he'd been evading taxes on his stolen money. Several other pastors were removed from their positions. It was painful but necessary, like surgery to remove cancer. My ministry changed. I no longer preached from a place of moral superiority, but from a position of shared brokenness. My sermons were about real failure and real redemption, about how God uses our worst moments to create something beautiful, about how sometimes the children of our sins become our salvation. 5 years after Elijah found me in that dumpster, I was performing a wedding for one of our church members. Elijah, now 11, was serving as a junior usher, helping elderly guests to their seats. I watched him work, marveling at the young man he was becoming. Brilliant, kind, faithful, everything I could have hoped for in a son. After the ceremony, Crawford's wife approached me. Her husband was in federal prison, their assets frozen, their reputation destroyed. She looked older, broken by the weight of her husband's crimes. "I owe you an apology," she said. "You don't owe me anything, Mrs. Crawford." "I do. I knew what James was doing. Not all of it, but enough." I stayed silent because I liked the lifestyle his theft provided. "And I said terrible things about you when the truth came out. About you and that precious boy." She looked at Elijah, who was helping the caterers clean up without being asked. "He's remarkable," she said. "Despite everything, despite how he came to be, he's remarkable. He is. James sent me to ask you something. He wants to know if you can forgive him." I thought about it for a long moment. "Tell him I forgave him a long time ago. But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. He knows. He just needed to hear that forgiveness was possible." After she left, Elijah came over. "That was Mrs. Crawford, wasn't it?" "Yes. Her husband is the one who helped hurt you and Mama." "Yes. But you were nice to her. She didn't do anything wrong, buddy. And even if she had, we're supposed to love our enemies, remember? That's hard." "The right thing usually is." He thought about that, then nodded. "Okay, I'll pray for Mr. Crawford tonight. That's my boy." On Elijah's 12th birthday, we had a party at the church. The whole congregation came, along with Margaret. My daughter Sarah reluctantly allowed them to attend, and dozens of Elijah's school friends. As I watched him blow out his candles, I thought about Angela, about how proud she would be of the young man her son was becoming. That night, after everyone had gone home, Elijah and I sat on the church steps looking at the stars. "Dad, can I ask you something? Anything? Do you regret what happened with Mama? I mean the sin part, not me, but you know what I mean. I regret hurting people. I regret betraying my values. But if I could go back and change it, make it so that night never happened, I wouldn't, really, because then you wouldn't exist. And you, Elijah Michael Thompson Harrison, are worth more than all the reputation, all the success, all the perfect life I lost. I love you, Dad. I love you too, son. Do you think Mama knows how things turned out? I think she does. Do you think she's proud? I know she is." We sat in comfortable silence, father and son, products of sin and grace, proof that God can make beautiful things from broken pieces. 10 years have passed since that night I found Elijah in the dumpster. He's 16 now, 6 feet tall. He got that from Angela's side, and the valedictorian of his class. He's been accepted early admission to Yale, planning to study theology and social justice. He wants to be a pastor, but not like I was. "I want to be the kind who actually helps people," he says. "Like you are now, not like you were before." It stings, but he's right. I was so focused on building a successful ministry that I forgot to minister. It took losing everything to find my actual calling. Sarah never forgave me. She's on her 3rd marriage now, still searching for the perfect life that doesn't exist. Rebecca and Ruth, now 22 and 19, have chosen to live with me and Elijah full time. They say it's because the college is closer, but I know it's because this is where they feel loved unconditionally. Elijah saved our family, Ruth told me once. Not destroyed it. He showed us what real love looks like. Margaret lived to see Elijah turn 15. On her deathbed, she held his hand in mine. "I spent so many years hating," she said, "hating Angela for embarrassing us, hating you for ruining her, hating myself for being such a prideful fool. But look what God did with all that hate. He made this beautiful boy who doesn't have a hateful bone in his body." "Great-grandma, don't talk like that," Elijah said, tears streaming. "Save your strength." "For what, baby?" "I'm going home, going to see your mama. And the first thing I'm going to tell her is that her boy turned out perfect, that her sacrifice was worth it." She died that night peacefully with Elijah reading her favorite Psalms. She left him everything, not just money, but photo albums, family histories, connections to relatives Angela had never gotten to know. She gave him roots to go with his wings. The church has thrived in its new incarnation. We're smaller but more authentic. We run a homeless shelter now, a real one, not just a tax write-off. We have a program for single mothers providing childcare and job training. We have a fund for children like Elijah. the unexpected, the unwanted, the evidence of human failure who deserve love regardless of how they came to be. Crawford got out of prison last year. He came to the church on a Wednesday night, thin and gray, nothing like the powerful man who'd once controlled everything. He sat in the back row, head bowed. After service, he approached me. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said. "You already have it. How can you forgive what I did? I destroyed your life. I destroyed Angela's life." "No," I said. "You set things in motion, but we all made our choices. And look what came from those choices, Elijah. Do you really think I can regret anything that gave me my son?" He looked at Elijah, who was helping stack chairs, laughing with the other youth. "He's remarkable. He is. I heard he wants to be a pastor." "He does. He'll be better than both of us. That's the plan." Crawford started attending regularly after that, sitting in the back, never taking communion but always listening. One Sunday, Elijah approached him. "Mr. Crawford, would you like to help with the food bank?" Crawford looked shocked. "You want my help? After everything I did?" "That's between you and God now," Elijah said. "But those hungry families don't care about your past. They just need food." Crawford broke down crying right there in the church. The man who'd orchestrated so much evil, brought low by the grace of a teenager who shouldn't exist. He volunteers at the food bank now every Saturday, working harder than volunteers half his age. Redemption, I've learned, comes in strange packages. Last month, I got a call from a publisher in New York. They wanted me to write a book about our story, about Elijah, Angela, the conspiracy, the fall, the redemption. I was hesitant until Elijah said something profound. "Dad, our story could help people, other pastors who've fallen, other kids who feel unwanted, other churches dealing with corruption. Don't we owe it to them to be honest? So I'm writing it." Elijah helps, adding his perspective, making sure I don't sugarcoat my failures or overstate my redemption. He wants it to be real, raw, true. People don't need fairy tales, he says. They need to know that God works in the mess, not despite it. The advance from the book will go to Angela's foundation. Yeah, we started one. The Angela Thompson Foundation for Displaced Children. It helps kids who've lost parents, especially those born into complicated situations. Elijah insisted on the name. "She should be remembered for more than one night's mistake," he said. "She should be remembered as my mama who loved me enough to make sure I found my dad." Yesterday was Sunday. I preached about grace, real grace, the kind that doesn't excuse sin but transforms it into something useful. Elijah sat in his usual spot, front row, taking notes for his own future sermons. Rebecca and Ruth sat beside him, my daughters who've become his fiercest protectors and biggest supporters. After service, a young woman approached me. She was obviously pregnant, obviously scared, obviously alone. "Pastor, I need help. I'm pregnant. The father won't acknowledge the baby. My family has disowned me. I don't know what to do." Before I could respond, Elijah was there. "You've come to the right place," he said gently. "This church specializes in the unwanted, the complicated, the messy. We'll help you." He looked at me, and in his eyes I saw Angela's compassion, Margaret's strength, and maybe a little of my own hard-won wisdom. "Won't we, Dad?" "Absolutely." As we walked the young woman to our resource center, Elijah said quietly, "Every child deserves to be claimed, no matter how they come to be. You're right, son. I learned that from you, from how you claimed me when you could have walked away. I could never have walked away. You're my son, but you didn't know that for sure at first. The DNA test took a week, but you claimed me that first night before you had proof, just on faith. Best leap of faith I ever took." "Mine too," he said. "When I called you dad in that dumpster, I didn't know if you'd accept me. I just knew Mama said to find the man with kind eyes who would love me. And you did. You do. Forever and always, buddy. Forever and always." Tonight I'm sitting in my study finishing this story. Elijah's at his desk doing homework, calculus that I couldn't help him with if my life depended on it. Occasionally he looks up and smiles, that same trusting smile he gave me 10 years ago when he was 6 and starving and calling me Dad. The letter Angela left, the one that started everything, sits framed on my wall. Not the whole thing, just one line. "Please love our son. Mission accomplished, Angela." Mission accomplished. Sometimes I think about alternate universes. One where Angela never came to counsel with me. One where she refused Crawford's money. One where she told me about the pregnancy. One where she never got sick. Infinite possibilities, infinite paths not taken. But in this universe, in this reality, a dying woman sent her son to find his father in a dumpster behind a church. A 6-year-old boy called a stranger dad and changed everything. A pastor lost his reputation but found his soul. A church lost its corruption but found its purpose. And Elijah? Elijah found his family. Complicated, messy, broken, but his... The other day, a reporter doing a follow-up story asked Elijah if he wished things had been different, more normal. "Normal is overrated," he said. "I'd rather have real. I'd rather have a father who chose me after falling than one who never fell at all. Because now I know his love is tested, proven, unshakable." The reporter turned to me. "Any regrets, Pastor Harrison?" "Only one," I said. That Angela isn't here to see the man her son has become. She sees, Elijah said quietly. Trust me, she sees. Later that night, Elijah showed me something he'd written for his college application essay. I am the son of a broken pastor and a dying woman who found each other in sin but created something sacred, me. I was born into scandal, raised in poverty, discovered in a dumpster and claimed in faith. I should be a cautionary tale, but instead I'm a testimony. Not to perfection, but to the perfect love that can grow from imperfect soil. My father says I saved him, but the truth is we saved each other. He gave me a name, a home, a future. I gave him a reason to be better than he was. Together we proved that families aren't built on blood alone, but on choice, sacrifice, and the courage to claim each other despite the cost. I cried reading it. This boy, this gift, this accident that became a miracle, he's going to change the world. Not despite his origins, but because of them. He knows what it's like to be unwanted, so he makes everyone feel valued. He knows what it's like to be hungry, so he feeds others. He knows what it's like to lose everything, so he helps others find what they need. Tomorrow Elijah has an interview with Yale. They want to meet the young man who wrote such a powerful essay. He's nervous but excited. What if they ask about you? About the scandal, he asked me. Tell them the truth. All of it, all of it. We don't hide from our truth anymore, son. We own it, learn from it, and use it to help others. He nodded, then hugged me. I'm proud to be your son, Dad, scandal and all. And I'm proud to be your father, dumpster and all. We laughed because what else can you do with a story this strange, this painful, this beautiful? As I write these final words, I can hear Elijah in his room praying. He prays every night, long conversations with God that sound more like talking to a friend than religious recitation. Tonight I hear him praying for the young pregnant woman who came to us, for Crawford still seeking redemption, for his sisters, for Sarah who can't forgive, for all the lost children looking for their fathers. And then I hear him say, and thank you, God, for that dumpster. Thank you for making me hungry enough to search it, because that's where I found my dad and where he found his purpose. Amen. Amen indeed. The truth is, I was the one in the dumpster that night, spiritually, emotionally, morally. Digging through the trash of my choices, feeding on scraps of former glory, lost in the darkness of my own making. Elijah didn't just call me Dad. He called me back to life. He called me to accountability. He called me to be the man God intended, not the man I'd settled for being. They say children don't come with instruction manuals. But Elijah came with a letter from his dying mother that contained the only instruction that mattered. Please love our son. Such a simple request, such a profound challenge, such a transformative command. I loved him before I knew him. I loved him before the DNA test confirmed what those green eyes had already told me. I loved him because in claiming him I was claiming the best part of myself, the part that could choose love over reputation, truth over comfort, redemption over respectability. My name's Pastor Michael Harrison. 15 years ago I was the rising star of American Christianity, destined for megachurch fame and fortune. Today I'm the pastor of a small, struggling church in Memphis, father to a son born from scandal. Divorced, disgraced, and absolutely certain I'm exactly where God wants me to be. Because sometimes God's greatest gifts come wrapped in our biggest failures. Sometimes the children of our sins become the parents of our salvation. Sometimes a 6-year-old boy in a dumpster isn't looking for food. He's looking for his father, carrying a letter that'll change everything, ready to call you back to who you were meant to be. And sometimes, just sometimes, when you think you're saving someone else, you discover they were sent to save you. Elijah saved me. And every day in 1,000 small ways, he keeps saving me. My son, my teacher, my redemption, my proof that God wastes nothing, not even our worst mistakes. The boy in the dumpster became the boy in the pulpit. The letter from a dying woman became the testimony of a living faith. The scandal that should have destroyed us became the story that defined us. And Angela? Angela's sacrifice, her love, her faith that I would do the right thing, it all mattered. Every moment of her struggle, every tear she shed raising Elijah alone, every prayer she prayed for the father who didn't know his son existed, it all mattered. Because in the end, love wins. Messy, complicated, scandalous love wins. It just sometimes takes a hungry child, a hidden letter, and the courage to claim each other in the ruins of our respectability. This is our story. Mine, Elijah's, Angela's, and yes, even God's. Because if God can use a scandal to create a saint, a sin to produce salvation, a dumpster to deliver destiny, then maybe, just maybe, there's hope for all of us. Even you reading this story, carrying your own secrets, your own scandals, your own sins. There's hope, there's redemption, there's a child somewhere, literal or metaphorical, waiting to call you back to who you were meant to be. Answer the call, claim your truth, choose love over reputation, and watch what God does with your willingness to be broken and rebuilt in public. My name is Pastor Michael Harrison, and I found my son in a dumpster. Or maybe he found me. Either way, we found each other, and in finding each other, we found ourselves. Thanks be to God. If this incredible story touched your soul, if you believe that redemption is possible even in our darkest moments, then you absolutely need to subscribe to our channel right now. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell because we share real stories that will transform how you see forgiveness, family, and faith. These aren't just stories, they're testimonies that prove love conquers shame, truth conquers lies, and sometimes our biggest mistakes become our greatest blessings. Subscribe now and join our community of believers who know that God works in mysterious, beautiful, and sometimes scandalous ways. Every week we bring you stories that will challenge your faith, expand your compassion, and remind you that no one is beyond redemption. Don't miss another powerful testimony like Elijah and Michael's. Click that subscribe button right now and be part of a movement that celebrates the messy, complicated, beautiful truth of real grace. Subscribe today.